Imagine staring at a deep space scanner. You're stationed out in the absolute middle of nowhere, just doing your job, and suddenly you receive a perfectly clear text message from a ghost.
Right, which is just the ultimate hook.
It really is. Today we're doing a deep dive into a massive stack of fictional lore, sociological analyses, and narrative excerpts, all centered around this incredible sci-fi epic. It's called The Last Human Signal, The Return of the Guardians.
Oh, it is just such a phenomenal piece of world building.
Yeah, and our mission today is to figure out exactly what happens when a species that was officially declared extinct, like 3,000 years ago, suddenly comes back. And here's the kicker. They aren't coming back to conquer the galaxy.
No, not at all.
They are coming back to save it.
Which is, it's such a brilliant subversion of the genre. I mean, if you look at standard galactic history tropes, there's usually this very comforting assumption of linear progress. You expand, you build, your empire lasts forever.
Right. The usual empire building stuff.
Exactly. But in this narrative, humanity is the ultimate cautionary tale. For 3 millennia, every alien child has been taught that humans are basically the textbook definition of civilizational failure.
Yeah, we are the species that supposedly wiped itself out. Like, we are the ghost story they tell. So if you're listening to this, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of Captain Turrell and his navigation officer, Vex.
Oh, the Wanderer scene.
Yes, on the survey vessel called the Wanderer. So it's a grinding, totally routine shift. And then the alarm sounds. Vex looks at the console, the bridge goes dead silent, and he confirms a 100% pristine human origin code.
Just impossible.
Completely impossible. But hold on, because I actually have to stop here. I'm struggling with the physics of this setup. I mean, how does a digital signal survive in deep space for 3,000 years without just, degrading into static?
Well, that is exactly what terrifies the crew of the Wanderer. Because you're right, a standard radio wave, or like a light-based transmission, that would be scattered by cosmic dust or just completely degraded by background radiation within a few centuries.
Right. So how is it still intact?
Because the lore details that this signal isn't a standard broadcast at all. It's built on this self-healing quantum algorithm.
Wait, self-healing?
Yeah, essentially the data packets are entangled, and they are constantly rewriting themselves to correct any corruption. So the sheer processing power required just to keep this simple message intact for 30 centuries, it implies a level of technology that a supposedly failed species just shouldn't have possessed.
Wow. Okay, that makes the actual content of the message even more haunting, I think. Because they are using this, God-tier quantum tech, and the message isn't a manifesto.
No, it's not.
It's not some grand declaration of survival. It is incredibly weak, deliberately broadcasting at a low frequency, and it's just a recording of a woman's voice. She sounds calm, but terribly sad. And she's just repeating 5 words. Is anyone still out there? Over and over.
And we also have to look at the sociology of where this signal is broadcasting from, right? Because the sensors trace it to a region called the Silent Frontier.
The spooky part of the galaxy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In this galaxy's geopolitical landscape, this is the ultimate dark forest. It's completely uncharted, way beyond any military patrol zones. Ships that wander in there, they do not come out.
Yeah, everyone avoids it.
Right. But those 5 words, broadcasting across the galaxy, they act like a psychological anchor. Millions of people hear it. And it transforms this from just some localized anomaly into an active, undeniable mystery. It completely compels the Wanderer to investigate.
Because curiosity is the one bug every explorer wants to catch, right? So they make the jump. And the tech says it takes 6 months of grueling travel listening to that same loop the entire time.
Just slowly going crazy, yeah.
Seriously. But when they finally reach the coordinates in the Silent Frontier, the physical laws of the universe just start breaking down. Scanners go blind. Gravity starts acting like a strobe light. Now, the lore mentions they find an artificial megastructure hidden there, one larger than a planet.
Which is mind-blowing.
It is, but again, I'm calling a timeout on the logistics here. You cannot just hide a planet-sized object in space for 2,000 years. The gravitational pull alone would alert every astronomer in the galaxy. Like, how did they pull that off?
Well, it's actually a phenomenal piece of world building. The human engineers didn't just park a megastructure in space. They created a closed gravitational loop.
A closed loop?
Yeah, they utilized localized mass light manipulation. So essentially, they're bending space-time around the structure so that light and gravity from outside seamlessly bypass it. If you were looking at it through a telescope, you'd just see the stars behind it.
Oh, wow. So it's perfectly camouflaged?
Completely.
Yeah.
The Wanderer only found it because they followed the specific frequency of the signal. That signal acted as a thread, pulling them right through the spatial distortion.
Okay, that makes sense. So they pull through this distortion, and they are staring at the largest thing ever built, covered in ancient human architecture. And then the recording stops.
Right.
The screen flickers, and a live transmission starts. It's the same dark-haired woman from the loop. She introduces herself as Sophia, and when the captain asks her age, she calmly states she is exactly 3,211 years old.
And she hasn't aged a day.
Not a single day. Which reveals she is an artificial intelligence. She's the final guardian left behind. But this brings up the most mind-bending twist in the lore. Humanity didn't die.
No, they didn't.
They left voluntarily.
Precisely. They weren't wiped out by plague or war. Every single human, every colony, every fleet, they all just packed up and left known space.
Okay, I am going to push back hard on this. You're telling me an entire civilization, trillions of individuals across hundreds of worlds agreed to just pack up and leave without a single splinter group rebelling.
I know, it sounds impossible.
Right, without one faction saying, no, I like my house, I'm staying. That goes against literally everything we know about human nature. How did they enforce that kind of absolute consensus?
Well, the interesting thing is, it wasn't enforced by a military or some authoritarian government. It was enforced by the sheer, terrifying weight of mathematical truth.
Mathematical truth, okay.
Yeah, the sources delve deeply into a sociological concept they call the Great Consensus. Human mathematicians and sociologists had developed a predictive model regarding an event they simply called the collapse.
The collapse.
Right. And this wasn't some vague prophecy, you know. This was predictive thermodynamics applied to galactic economics and sociology.
Predictive thermodynamics. Okay, unpack that for me. Because, like, how do you even apply thermodynamics to a society?
Okay. Think of a galactic civilization as an engine. Thermodynamics dictates that an engine cannot be 100% efficient, right?
Sure, energy is always lost.
Exactly. It's always lost as heat. So the human models proved that the galaxy's geopolitical engine was losing too much energy to friction.
Friction meaning what? Like conflict?
Exactly. Petty wars, corruption, resource hoarding, inefficient trade routes. The mathematical models proved, with zero margin for error, that the energy required to maintain the galactic civilization was exponentially outpacing the resources available.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the collapse wasn't an alien invasion. It was a mathematical certainty of systemic failure. And the data was so irrefutable that the human species experienced a massive paradigm shift. Staying meant drowning. Leaving was the only logical survival mechanism.
Wow. It's like, think of the galaxy's resource problem like a massive game of Jenga.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Right. And the other alien species were so intensely focused on pulling blocks from the bottom to build their own little rival towers at the top, they completely ignored the swaying of the entire structure. But humanity didn't just keep this to themselves, did they?
No, they tried to warn everyone.
Right. They showed the other species the Jenga tower was falling. They brought the data. They shared the economic models.
And the galaxy completely ignored them because the models required immediate, painful, short-term sacrifices to prevent a long-term disaster.
And nobody wants to do that.
Exactly. Game theory tells us that independent actors in a competitive system will rarely sacrifice their own immediate advantage for the collective good, especially if their rivals don't. So the other species looked at the human data, scoffed at it, and just went back to fighting over border planets.
Man, if you're listening to this and thinking about our own world's current supply chain fragilities, or how hard it is to get global consensus on long-term issues, you can see exactly why those human mathematicians hit the panic button.
Oh, absolutely.
So, humanity pivots. They retreat into the silent frontier behind this gravitational cloak. And for 3,000 years, the rest of the galaxy is just patting itself on the back, using humanity as the punchline to a joke. Like, look at those poor, foolish humans who went extinct.
All while the galaxy's endlessly arguing.
Exactly. Empires are rising, blowing each other up, rebuilding. And humanity. They weren't just hiding to survive. They spent 3 millennia doing the homework the rest of the galaxy refused to do.
Which is really the pivot point of the entire narrative. The preparation phase. Because Sophia, the AI guardian, she didn't turn on that signal on a whim.
Right.
She didn't broadcast as anyone's still out there.
Yeah.
Because she was feeling lonely. She turned the signal on because the 3,000-year timer had finally run out. The preparation was complete. Humanity was returning.
And when the rest of the galaxy realizes this, they absolutely lose their collective minds.
Oh, totally.
I mean, the immediate aftermath of Sophia's live broadcast is just pure, unfiltered geopolitical panic. The Galactic Council activates emergency protocols. Ancient, bitter alien enemies are suddenly signing peace treaties overnight out of sheer terror. Because from their perspective, humanity just spent 30 centuries doing nothing but preparing for vengeance.
It's classic projection. The galaxy's own guilt and aggressive tendencies cause them to assume humanity is coming back as conquerors. They think a reckoning is coming for, being dismissed and mocked. And if we look at the logistics of the return, it completely validates their terror.
It really does.
Yeah, 6 months after the broadcast, human vessels begin emerging from artificial wormholes across all known space.
And the scale of it is staggering. Millions, then billions of ships. But it's not just the numbers that get me. The source material highlights this detail that genuinely gave me chills.
The energy readings.
Yes. Military analysts realize that each individual human ship possesses more energy than entire galactic battle fleets combined. I mean, how is that even possible? A ship is a ship, right? How does one civilian vessel outclass a dreadnought?
Well, it's because humanity underwent a Kardashev-scale evolution while in isolation.
Okay, meaning what exactly?
So the other species were still burning resources, mining planets, refining fuel, building traditional energy grids. They were essentially a Type I, or at best, early Type II civilization. But humanity, in their isolation, transitioned to full Type III efficiency.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they mastered zero-point energy and localized star lifting. They weren't building massive plasma cannons. Their engines themselves were manipulating the fundamental forces of the universe.
Right.
When a species can effortlessly tear open an artificial wormhole, their very mode of transportation makes traditional weaponry look like children throwing rocks.
So you have this overwhelming godlike display of power. The Galactic Council calls an emergency meeting. The representatives of thousands of species are sitting in this massive chamber, utterly terrified.
Just waiting for the end.
Right. They are staring at the doors, bracing themselves. They are expecting a towering warlord, flanked by unstoppable super soldiers in power armor, to march in and demand the absolute surrender of the galaxy.
The tension is incredible. The narrative builds to this massive climax of impending doom, and then the doors open.
And the tension just evaporates into profound confusion. Because there are no super soldiers, there are no weapons. A single human walks into the chamber. It's an older woman. She has gray hair. She's completely unarmed, wearing simple clothing. And she has a gentle, almost tired smile.
Such great image.
She introduces herself simply as Sarah Morgan.
The juxtaposition is just a masterstroke of storytelling. The galaxy is braced for the apocalypse, and instead, they get this elder stateswoman projecting an aura of complete, unshakable peace. You have a room full of heavily armed, panicking alien delegates, and finally, one nervous representative works up the courage to ask the question burning in everyone's mind: why are you here?
And Sarah Morgan gives a two-word answer that completely stuns the entire room. To help.
And nobody believes her at first.
Because who would? It defies every cynical lot of politics they have ever known. It violates all the game theory we talked about earlier. Why help the people who mocked you?
Exactly. But Sarah doesn't argue morality with them. She does exactly what humanity did 3,000 years prior. She shows them the data.
But it's different this time.
Right. It's not a predictive model of the future anymore. It is real-time, current diagnostics of the galaxy. She projects the data live to the Council, proving that the collapse is no longer a theory. It is actively happening all around them.
The evidence is totally undeniable. She shows them failing agricultural biomes on core worlds. She shows them the decay of the subspace transit lanes. Trade networks are fracturing. Resources are plummeting. The galaxy is literally dying in slow motion, exactly as the thermodynamics of the human models predicted it would.
It's all coming true.
Yeah, and humanity returned for one simple reason. Because they're the only civilization left with the capability, the technology, and the resources to stop the bleeding.
What follows in the lore is known as the Century of Restoration. And this is where we finally see what humanity was doing in the dark for 3,000 years. They weren't building planet-killing lasers. They were engineering logistical miracles.
Yeah, they were busy.
Really busy. The human engineers deploy what are essentially terraforming clouds of nanomachines that can repair failing planetary infrastructure at the atomic level.
Human scientists introduced genetic stabilization techniques that double the average lifespan across the galaxy in a single generation. They introduced closed-loop agricultural technologies that end starvation entirely.
It's just a total overhaul of galactic life.
And they launch massive, automated construction projects that reignite dead stellar cores and bring ruined worlds back to life. Everywhere humanity goes, the quality of life skyrockets. And the text points out something vital, I think. It isn't because humans are biologically superior or inherently magical.
No, not at all.
It's simply because they put in the work. They spent 30 centuries doing the grueling, unglamorous math to build the exact solutions the galaxy was too busy fighting to figure out for themselves.
Eventually, the sheer magnitude of this undertaking is captured in a highly publicized, galaxy-wide interview. A young galactic reporter sits down with Sarah Morgan. And the reporter asks the question that you as the listener are probably wondering right now.
I know I was.
Right. After everything that happened, well, I shouldn't say ... but you get what I mean. After the warnings were ignored, after humanity was abandoned and turned into a cautionary tale, why come back? Why not just let the galaxy reap what it sowed, let the Jenga tower fall, and build a human utopia in the ashes?
And Sarah Morgan's answer is just a masterclass in quiet, unyielding strength. She looks at the reporter, smiles, and says, "Because somebody had to." The reporter is stunned. He asks, "That's it?" And she nods. "That's enough."
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it completely changes the fundamental thesis of what makes a civilization great. For thousands of years, the rest of the galaxy operated on the assumption that strength meant dominance. That power was defined by your ability to destroy your enemies.
Yeah, a very old school way of thinking.
Right. But humanity returned and proved that true strength means radical responsibility. Their greatest achievement wasn't the artificial wormholes, or the localized gravity loops, or the immortal AI. Their greatest technological and cultural achievement was compassion. They weaponized empathy.
I love that phrase, weaponized empathy. It really is a beautiful reframing of what a society can aspire to be. It completely dismantles our traditional, aggressive definition of power. I mean, anyone can build a weapon. Anyone can let their ego drive them to conquer an empire. But it takes a completely different, infinitely rarer kind of power to spend 3,000 years in exile, dedicating your entire civilization's existence to saving the very people who turned their backs on you. I want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. It's stories like The Return of the Guardians that force us to look in the mirror and question our own definitions of leadership, of power, and of what we actually owe to each other in the grand scheme of things.
It really challenges the listener to consider what true legacy looks like. Is it the ruins of fortresses you leave behind, or the systems you put in place to ensure others survive?
Exactly. But before we go, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over something that really shifts the entire perspective of this story. Think back to the very beginning of the narrative, to that broken ancient signal playing on a loop in the darkness of the silent frontier.
The 5 words.
Yes, the 5 words. Is anyone still out there? When Captain Terrell and his crew first heard it, it sounded like a tragedy, right? It sounded like the lonely, desperate plea of a dying species begging the universe for a rescue that was never going to come.
That's what everyone assumed.
But knowing what we know now, knowing about the 3,000 years of preparation, about the thermodynamic data models of the collapse, and the unimaginable power they wielded, think about what those 5 words actually meant. It wasn't a cry for help.
Not even close.
No, it was the universe's ultimate welfare check. Sophia wasn't broadcasting into the void hoping someone was coming to save humanity. She was checking to see if the galaxy had survived long enough for humanity.